Doug is. And they'll just assume that's somebody. Back of the head shot.
Today I'm going to talk to you about a gardening method known as square foot gardening. It's easy and a fun project to do. With the rising cost of produce in the grocery store, and I'm talking about tomatoes topping over $2.69 a pound, and the concern with chemicals and pesticides used in commercial gardens, more people are choosing to grow their own garden. And people think you need a big space of land to grow a garden, but that's not true. You don't need a lot of space. Square foot gardens use very minimal space. In as little as 4 by 4 feet, you can grow enough vegetables to feed a small family all summer long. There are many benefits to square foot gardening. It's extremely efficient. In about 20% of the space of a traditional garden, you get the same yield of produce. Square foot gardening also uses less water because instead of watering a huge plot of land, you're only watering a 4 by 4 area. It's also much more easily maintained because weeding is easier and pest control is easier. There are several steps to constructing your square foot garden. The first step is to choose your location. You want to choose a location that gets 6 to 8 hours of sunlight per day. What I did is I chose my location in my yard and I kind of monitored it over a week. I'll go out in the morning and see what time the sun hit it, and the evening to see what time the shade hits it. I'm fortunate because I get about 10 hours of sunlight a day. The next step is to construct your box. The ideal size is a 4 by 4 box, only 7 inches deep. It surprised me that you can grow things in just 7 inches of soil, but that's really all you need. They make kits at Ace Hardware and Home Depot that you can buy. They already have the wood, and then you just snap it together and use a screwdriver. If you're going to construct your own box, again, it needs to be 4 feet by 4 feet, and you need to use non-pressure treated wood. Cedar is the best thing. You don't want chemicals leaching into your soil. If you're going to do multiple boxes, you need about 1 to 2 feet of space in between them. That way you can walk around them. The idea of square foot gardening is to never step foot on the soil. You don't want to compact the soil. So with a 4 by 4, you can reach it from all 4 sides. The next step is your soil. Mel Bartholomew, who is the square foot gardening guru, he kind of came up with the concept, recommends a mixture of 1/3 compost, 1/3 vermiculite, and 1/3 peat moss. I didn't have any compost because I don't have an area to compost in my yard, so I just used bagged garden soil from Home Depot. The beauty of the square foot garden is your base soil and the quality of your soil doesn't matter because the only thing you're growing in is the soil that you add. So you can grow in clay, and in my case, I grow on top of sand. The next step is to mark your squares. You can take a tape measure and go through and mark every 12 inches. What I used was tacks and string. I would put a tack at every 12 inches, and then I ran string to form a grid. If you want something a little bit more permanent, you can use wood strips. But the squares are an integral part of the square foot gardening method. That marks where you're going to plant your plants. So you're not just haphazardly planting within the box. It helps keep your plants organized. The next step is to plant the plants. And because each square is a designated plant, it makes it super easy to organize. Also, based on the size of the plant is how many plants you plant per square. So a tomato, because it grows large, of course, would be 1 plant per square. But something smaller, like basil or oregano, you can plant 2 to 4 plants per square. And things that grow vertically, even more, is like carrots. Mine aren't coming up yet in the picture, but you can plant 16 carrot plants per square. Now, I was amazed that you could plant that volume of stuff in these gardens, but it really works. In square foot gardening, you can grow the many types of plants, like I said. I used a mix of vegetables and herbs in my garden. In mine, I have tomatoes, peppers, basil, oregano, thyme, and rosemary. And even in the back row, I have vine plants like cucumbers, eggplant, and squash, which I'm planning on training on a trellis on the back row. Mel Bartholomew also recommends planting 1 pest deterrent plant per box. those plants can be citronella, onions, or marigolds. I chose marigolds because I wanted that pop of yellow color in each one of my hyacinths. The next step is to water the beds thoroughly. Now, I talked earlier about how water efficient the beds are, but it's important for the first few weeks while the roots are taking hold and while you're developing your plants to keep the soil moist. After that, your maintenance is like once, twice a week watering, that's all. You also want to fertilize and weed your plants. I use an organic fertilizer, but you can use any fertilizer from your home improvement store or Miracle-Gro. It's important not to fertilize every single time you water, maybe once or twice a week, a small amount. Also, you need to make sure you keep your beds weeded. I'm very fortunate I don't have weeds because I'm growing on sand, but if you're growing in an area where you can mow your grass and the seeds from those weeds can be transported into your beds, they recommend about 1 hour a week of weeding, which you probably won't even need that much time. And finally, you want to enjoy your harvest. There's nothing better than a homegrown tomato. But the beauty of the square foot garden is at the end of the summer, it's not over. You can take out those plants and plant cold weather crops, such as kale, collards, and lettuces in the fall. Even squash and gourds if you want to. Just make sure to add a small amount of compost between your crops to keep your soil nutrient rich. Square foot gardening is so easy to do, and anyone can grow their own garden even in a limited space. I hope that this presentation has inspired you to build your own square foot garden and enjoy the benefits of your own fruits and vegetables. Thank you.
Good job.
We're still here. We didn't leave.